Hello everyone. In this session, we'll be discussing the third chapter of business studies, which is private, public, and global enterprise. Now, before starting the chapter, we will discuss all types of business organization we come across in our daily life. So, in a neighborhood market, there are many shops which are owned by sole proprietorship, and there are big retail organization also which is run by the company. Also, there are people providing you the services like legal services, medical services, and these are owned by more than one person. And we know the services or organization which are owned by more than one person are known as partnership firms. So these are all privately owned organizations, which means these are the organizations which are owned by the private sector, and it comes under the category of private sector. Now, apart from the private organizations, there are other offices and other business organizations which are owned by the government. For example, railway is an organization which is wholly owned and managed by the government. Also, the post office in our locality is also owned by the government of India. But nowadays, in cities and towns, our dependencies on these government postal services has been reduced because plenty of private courier services firms are operating in bigger towns. Then there are businesses which operate in more than one country, which is known as global enterprises. So we have observed that all types of organizations are doing business in our country, whether they are private, public, or global. Now we will discuss the role of private sector versus public sector since independence. इंडिपेंडेंस से पहले और इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद पब्लिक सेक्टर और प्राइवेट सेक्टर के क्या इंपॉर्टेंट रोल थे. So after independence, the Indian government nationalized many enterprises. The Industrial Policy Resolution of 1948 and 1956 was passed, and according to this policy, it assigned dominant role to the public sector enterprise, which means many areas of business were reserved for public sector, and the entry of private sector was restricted. In spite of restricted entry, the private sector continued to grow and contribute in the economic development of the country. And by giving priority to the public sector, this sector could not do much for the economic development of the country. That is why in 1991, the government of India adopted the policy of liberalization and globalization. Now, under this policy, private sector was assigned an important role, and the many entry barriers on private sector was removed. Due to these changes, there is tremendous improvement in the economic development of our country, which means now there is more open and competitive environment between the public and private sector. Moving on to the Indian economy. So when it comes to Indian economy, as we know, India is a mixed economy. Mixed economy means it has adopted both socialist and capitalist economy. Due to this, both private and public sector are in existence. Now, if you go for a socialist economy, what will happen? You will find only public sector working, whereas in capitalist economy, it could be the private sector who would be working. So if we divide the public sector is divided into three categories. First is departmental undertakings, second is statutory corporation, third is government companies. And private sector is divided into many organizations such as sole proprietorship, partnership, joint Hindu family business, cooperative societies, companies which includes public and private company, and also the multinational corporation. We have studied the private sector's types of organization in the second chapter. Now we will discuss some public sector enterprise. Now, before discussing the types of public sector, let us first understand what is public sector. So, public sector is an organization which is managed or owned partly or wholly by central or state government. The government act through people, its offices, employees, and they take decision on behalf of the government. And public sector is accountable to public through parliament. Now, here are some questions based on the topic discussed above. First question is, explain the concept of public sector and private sector. Second is, what was the role of public sector before and after 1991? So, as we know, there are three types of public sector enterprises. So, the first type is departmental undertaking. This is the oldest form of public sector enterprise. The departmental undertaking is considered as one of the department of the government itself. It has no separate existence than government, which means it is fully controlled and managed by the government, and it functions under the overall control of one ministry or department of the government. Some examples of departmental undertakings are railways, defense, post and telegraph, broadcasting, telephone services, etc. So these are the departments which are controlled and managed by the Department of Government. Next is some features of departmental undertakings. So the first feature is they operate under the overall control of one of the ministries of state or central government. Second is they are a part of government only, there is no separate entity. Third is they are financed from the annual budgets of the government. Next is the revenue of departmental undertakings are deposited in the treasury of the government. The staff of departmental undertakings are civil servants and they are recruited and compensated as per the rules of civil servants. Now, moving on to the merits or advantages of departmental undertakings, the first advantage is easy formation. It is very easy to form a departmental undertaking as no registration is compulsory. Second is effective control. The control on departmental undertaking is very effective as it is direct and centralized. Third is optimum utilization of funds. So in departmental organization, there is optimum utilization of funds as financial matters are the subject of ministerial sanction, budget, accounting and audit control. Third is accountability. So there is direct parliamentary control because the performance of departmental undertakings is discussed in parliament. So there is public accountability. Last is public revenue. The revenue of departmental undertaking is deposited in the treasury of the government. We have discussed this on the features of departmental undertaking. So these undertaking helps to increase the government revenue. So at last, we will discuss the demerits or disadvantages of departmental undertakings. So the first demerit is inflexibility. As we know, departmental undertakings works under the parliamentary control. So there is too much interference of ministries and top officials. It is treated as one of the government offices. This reduces the flexibility and efficiency of the undertaking. Second is lack of motivation. Departmental undertakings have no power to utilize their revenues because these revenues are deposited in the government treasury. So there is no incentive to maximize profit, no direct relation between the efforts and rewards, and the promotions in the departmental undertakings are on the basis of seniority and not on the basis of efforts. So employees are not motivated to perform to their best ability. Third is lack of financial autonomy. It means these undertakings cannot plan long-term investment projects because they are subjected to budgetary control of government. They are not allowed to use their revenue freely as they have to be deposited into treasury of the government. Fourth is inefficient management. These undertakings are managed by the government officials, and these officials are overburdened with the paperwork. So they maximum spend their time to answer the queries from the parliament or the ministry. Next is red tapeism and bureaucracy. It refers to the delay in decision due to too many administrative formalities, paperwork, procedures, etc. And the last disadvantage is suitability. So these undertakings are suitable in the cases where the government control is necessary, for example, broadcasting, where huge investment is involved, for example, aircraft, iron and steel, etc., and where the undertaking is a source of revenue, for example, railways. Now, here are some questions based on the topic discussed above. First question is explain the meaning and feature of departmental undertaking and highlight the merits and demerits of departmental undertaking. So we have discussed the first type of public sector enterprise in this session. In next session, we'll continue with some other types of public sector enterprises. That's all for today. Thank you.